Welcome to Squirrel, the podcast for distracted writers, hosted by Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner. Hey everybody, welcome to Squirrel. This is Jody.
And this is Candace.
And this episode is something we're very excited about because this is our 42nd episode. I feel that requires a drum roll. I think we need a little bit of a drum roll, please. We must celebrate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Okay, so this month we've kind of talked about a little bit of everything because we started off with April Fool's Day, literally, and it was humor and mischief. And then we had it's National Poetry Month, and so we talked about poetry. Mm-hmm. And then because it was Oppenheimer's birthday, we talked about radiation. And because we want to continue this trend of this month being slightly unhinged, sure, we figured this is the perfect synergy of it being the 42nd episode, and it's already been kind of a quirky month.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think it's perfect. Like, this is your episode. This is your idea. And so when I was looking over, you said that you wanted to do Hitchhiker's Guide, and I was like, why? And then I realized that it was 42nd episode, and I went, okay, that's brilliant. You really tailored this.
I have
so I'm okay with that.
Okay, so this is going to be kind of our tribute to Hitchhiker's Guide and the brilliance that is Douglas Adams. And so we're going to be diving into some of the most memorable messages from the series, but we're going to do a little twist on it where we're going to turn it into a writing advice because we are still a writing podcast.
Yeah.
So the very first one is don't panic. Don't panic. So the way we're going to twist this one is talking about writer's block and mental barriers. And so, armed with a towel, you can do anything. Okay, just kidding. So when we talk about writer's block, the worst thing you could possibly do is start to panic. Like, you need to relax just a little bit. It's okay. It's okay if you don't feel like you have all the ideas in one moment. It's okay if you feel like things aren't flowing. You're still a writer. Get yourself a cookie. Take a step back. But it's okay. Don't panic. The last thing that's going to help you is getting worked up like that. So take a few steps back to when you felt you knew what you were doing and maybe make a different decision and give it a try. If Edison could do a couple hundred different ways of not making a light bulb, you can try a couple different ways of not writing your story until you find the right one. And that's okay.
That's perfect. For this one, the thing that I can think of, honestly, is just applying self-care. By doing that, you're not panicking. You're learning to, calm yourself down. So how I combat writer's block is by clearing my mind and of all the clutter. And I like to take a bubble bath. And I like to do morning meditation. These are things that help me calm down and prepare my mind for getting some writing in. And no kidding, that is serious, that I would take a bubble bath anytime I didn't exactly know where my story was going. Here, I as a discovery writer, I do tend to leap into situations that I don't know exactly how to get out of. So that would be one of the, I would just take a bath, and there I would be by myself. No children would be near me, and I could, I didn't have any responsibility except just to relax and clear my mind. So
sounds lovely.
Right? So yeah, that's how I say don't panic, is learn some methods that help you calm and clear your mind in order to see the vision of what you need to do.
I like that. That's terrific. Thank you for sharing. So being a writer means you're going to be facing a lot of uncertainty because the whole nature of the writing business is subject to change constantly. And what was normal a few years ago is going to not work now. And what worked really, really well a couple weeks ago might not work anymore. There is a lot of just uncertainty baked into it. You don't know if what you're writing is going to resonate with anyone. So one of the things I would also like to talk about is how to break through these mental barriers that can happen, like when we're feeling uncertain about how we are functioning in this space of being a writer.
I'm not sure how to answer this question because, like the book, this is a bigger question than just being stuck, right?
Yeah.
I just know that Wellbutrin has become a really great friend.
And taking care of your mental health.
Yeah, and has really helped me daily for several years. But here's an idea. Don't be afraid. This is an insane idea. Don't be afraid of 5-hour energy or a cup of coffee or like some kind of energy drink just to give you that push that you need to be creative. Did you know that like LSD was was a popular drug in the 60s to give to people to be creative? In the era where it was a lot of rock bands would go and record, one of the things to be creative is they would take LSD. So I'm not suggesting that.
No, we can't suggest that at all.
No.
We have to suggest things that are legal.
But one thing that I find would be like just a push, just some kind of push to get you creative is to take some energy and see what.
Well, and if you're really, really tired, you're not going to be thinking as clearly. So it might make sense to either find times of the day where you are awake enough to really think clearly, or find something that can help you momentarily, such as something caffeinated or one of these energy drinks like Candy was talking about.
So, I mean, let's consider it's Marvin, the robot, the depressed robot, right?
I love Marvin.
And how angry he's so angry at these doors.
Because they're overly polite.
And he's jealous of them and envious. And that's a lot of the times I can see that being a mental barrier, that you're comparing yourself to other people.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
And so stop comparing yourself. Just get it's just it's a deeper question than that I can't just answer with how to do that.
A lot of it depends on what is your particular hang up. Like what your mental barrier might be. Because it might be you're seeing someone else being really successful doing the exactly same thing you are, and you're not finding the same success and you're frustrated. And then you're like, I can't work because clearly nothing I do is going to be successful, even though I'm doing the right stuff. Like that is a massive mental barrier. You're not going to find creativity when you're stewing on all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I think is really important is find perspective. So talk it through with someone who's been through what you've been through, someone who's hopefully a few steps ahead of you, who can be like, hey, what you're feeling is really normal. Mm-hmm. And this is something that helped me. And this is something that helped, my other friend. Get perspective on your situation from someone who can step back and see what you're going through and help you navigate the situation. Because nothing's more fear-inducing than just not knowing. Just this fog of, I have no idea why nothing's working and everyone seems to hate my stuff. They don't hate your stuff. You just haven't found the right people to love your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I talked about that later on.
Cool.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Oh, that's in our third section, which I'll talk about when we get there. Okay. So our next topic is all about improbability, because in Hitchhiker's Guide, they have the improbability drive,
which I just loved,
which is delightful.
It was just so great.
Like,
it's just a
when you're
great
all
idea.
states of everything at once and then not. And when they visualize it in this most recent movie, like I think they're crochet for a minute.
Yeah, that was so
it's
cute.
Delightful.
And then he's like spewing up yarn.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so the twist we're going to play on this is how to embrace the unexpected. And our first question is, what does it mean to take creative risks? And so I'm going to briefly define what I feel a creative risk is, where it's anything we do where we don't know what the outcome will be. So this could be a story decision, like a plot idea. This could be a business decision. And the best way to make a good decision is to be very knowledgeable about what you're trying to decide. So do research or see if anyone else has done something similar and what their outcome was. Mm-hmm. When it comes to taking creative risks, Candy, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's very similar to yours, where there is no paved road when you become an author. You've no idea what you're heading into, honestly. And everything you do when you become a new writer is a creative risk. Everything. You just understanding what is needed of you and where you can find readers is a creative risk. As you were talking about not being able to find those readers, you got to experiment a little bit. I'm all about experimenting, and I need results. I like to know the result. I'm a data-driven person where I'm looking at different outcomes of this, trying this and trying that, and where I'm hitting marks and where I'm not. And so I think that was one of the driving forces of trying to, use India as a market to explore, because of how their fantasy thirst is. And that was a really great experiment for me to push there. That was something I'd never even considered. But knowing that that was where a lot of my driving force, like a lot of my sales were coming from, was from India, concentrating there was extremely successsual. So that was a big creative risk, because who does that? It was just an interesting experiment. And yeah, you just never know. You just don't know what your road is looking like when you start walking on it. So, Jody, how plot twist can make everything so much better?
And this is still the
we're still on the improbability.
Yeah, embracing the unexpected. So, have you ever read a book and you're like, I know what's going to happen next, and then it happens exactly the way you thought?
That is why I don't go to movies with my sister, because she sits next to me and she's like, "Oh, he's the bad guy. Stop it! Stop ruining this for me. I would have never guessed." But
yeah, I have a bad reputation in my family for exactly the same reason.
Really?
Absolutely.
I don't think we've seen a movie together lately. So
it's been a while. It was
Barbie, but I already knew.
Yeah, you'd seen it a handful of times before that, so I couldn't spoil it for you. That is true. And I probably would have been wrong on a lot of those.
Oh, yeah. He's the bad guy. No, he's Ken. He's just Ken.
I'm just Ken.
Okay.
So this is where a plot twist can come in, because if a reader can predict what happens and then it happens, they're going to be bored. But if you can add in a plot twist that works with the story, but it's unexpected, you can keep your readers on your toes. Mm-hmm. And so I like plot twists. They're harder to do, to make them fit with the story where it feels like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that, but it completely works. Mm-hmm. Like that takes some engineering. And I feel like the first draft, they don't quite come out fully formed. It takes a couple passes to make them really flow nicely.
Yeah, I agree. So I am quite a reckless decision maker when I'm writing fantasy. Actually anything, honestly. It's because I have the idea of the arc, but I have no it's like a situational comedy that I'm constantly writing. And I often don't. I often make a lot of plot decisions, so that I think that you may understand what the end result is, but getting there should be not what people expect. Mm-hmm. So it's, how fantasy series end usually comes out with a win, but in navigating there can be tons of plot twists and decisions that they can direct your reader a different way.
Anytime you make your reader go, wait, what? But in a good way?
Yeah. It's like, oh, or that moment when you're like, oh my gosh, that's, oh no, I'm going to, when I read this book again, it's going to be a different book because now I know. this amazing
like the secret
problem.
Identities of characters when they reveal themselves. You're like, oh, I knew it all along, but I didn't.
Yes. There you go.
All right, our next topic. And we had to touch on this one because we actually mentioned it during our poetry episodes. The Vogon poetry. But we're not going to talk about awful poetry. We're going to talk about finding your unique voice. And so the first question in this group is, what can you learn from Vogon poetry and its relevance to finding one's own voice?
You need to go first on this one. I need to go
first on this?
Yeah.
Excellent idea. Okay, so
I tend to ramble a little.
So my first thought on this was the idea, and Anne Lamott first shared this idea in Bird by Bird.
Yeah, okay.
Where it's the idea of writing just a really not great first draft. She uses more colorful language. But we are a family-friendly podcast. So if you're going to create something and you're like so hung up on making it great and perfect and like amazing the first try, you're never going to finish and you're going to get really stressed out. I think you should try to write badly. It's okay. In fact, if you get stuck, ask yourself, what's the worst possible thing I could write right now? It takes all the pressure off. It's amazing. And you come up with the stupidest idea you could possibly do, and you can start playing with it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait. That's a stupid idea, but here's my smart idea that I think is going to work. Because the more you allow yourself to experiment with really bad Vogon poetry, chances are you might come up with some good stuff too.
Something you might think is brilliant. So I've never written anything bad, not on purpose. Like I've never gone that route. So I think that's a really fun. Like it takes the
pressure off.
That is true.
Like intentionally being like, what's the worst thing I could possibly do right now? Because honestly, your worst ideas, it's going to be better than not writing at all.
Well, and my first drafts are usually a lot of
rejected ideas.
Yeah, it's just it is writing into the dark. It's not until I go back over it do I really get an idea of how to make it better. Mm-hmm. But that would be really fun. Okay, something that you might think, I say you, I'm not pointing to you.
Yes,
something that
me.
A writer might think is brilliant may not have an audience. So in finding your right voice, sometimes you just need to research your audience as well. Yeah, so I have a story here just as a example because I found this funny. So I was once invited to be part of an anthology that was a steampunk anthology. And I don't really write steampunk. But what they wanted to do was use LDS pioneer stories and make them steampunk. So here, do you see the problems here?
Several.
So, right? Okay. First of all, who is going to read this? So if you look at the genre fiction readers that read steampunk.
It's
tiny It's very, fraction. Very, very small. So now you're going to limit it to an even smaller demographic of people that know LDS religious pioneer stories and also read steampunk. So that's basically the only people that are writing this. It's just them and maybe their families. I mean, that's it. Mm-hmm. There is no audience for this at all.
That's it. It was relatively well received as it did not hit any bestseller lists, but the people who were involved in it had a great time.
Yeah, certainly.
Was it a viable product to market?
No, they had a great time doing it. That's great. But I did not find a value in using talents for this project.
And now they have like multiple volumes.
I don't even care.
They had such a great time.
Yeah. It's not going to sell. And I can't waste my time on something like that. That is definitely, I will say that right now, not my audience. I'm not going
No.
for...
It wouldn't have done anything for you in your career at all.
Nothing.
It wouldn't do much for anybody's career.
No. I'm sure. Fun. Great.
But they had a great time.
That's awesome. No, I don't.
It's not a strong business decision.
No. So that was just my example that I wanted to bring up, that you just need to be aware where your audience might be in creating your, in experimenting a little bit with your voice.
Well, also, if you know you're going to be a certain kind of writer, like you have a certain genre you are going to own, it's going to be what you work in. And someone's like, I want you to write something for this that's just enough sideways from what you normally write. It's not going to help you build your brand.
Exactly.
And it's also probably going to take you a really long time, and you're going to be very frustrated at it. Or you secretly find you really, really love it. I mean, sometimes that does happen. You find something new and you try it and you're like, I never thought I'd like writing techno dinosaurs. But here we are.
Well, if I can bring up a author, Marissa Myers. So she wrote the Lunar Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
It with like Cinder and Scarlet, and those were pretty epically cool.
They're very good.
But they're science fiction. And where she has moved now is more contemporary young adult. It's almost like two different brands. But I mean, she wanted to maybe just experiment with writing something like this, and learned that it was a lot of fun. So now she has a brand of just all of these cute young adult little romancy things. I couldn't tell you.
She went
I don't
fluffy.
read those. Yeah, exactly. I was like,
and Lunar Chronicles were not fluffy.
No, they were so
and
cool.
So the tone shift is going to, like, her original readers are annoyed.
I read her Renegades, which was pretty close. It was in the same kind of vein, but it was superheroes. That one was pretty cool too. Not as awesome as Lunar Chronicles, but I can't get into like this instant karma type of fiction where it might have a slight magical twist to it, but it's not engaging for me. It's definitely, I'm not the audience. It's just good. It's good to know what you can do with your voice if you want to. You just know where your audience is, I guess. That wasn't even in my notes. I just started to ramble.
Yeah, I don't remember you mentioning that.
No, I did not.
If we wanted to be Vogue on Poets and we wanted to practice, now what are strategies that we could do to find our own distinctive style and tone? And I swear this just comes to experimentation. Now, Marissa Meyer experimented with a different thing, and maybe she'll find a whole bunch of people that like it. Maybe she won't, but she got to a point in her career and had gained enough of an audience where that was a gamble she was willing to take, and that's okay. If you're still figuring out what you really like, don't be afraid of trying a bunch of everything until something really clicks, because until you try it, you're not going to know. Mm-hmm. And this is where short stories can be really helpful, because if you're like, I've always wanted to try X, but my book I'm working on right now is Y. And it's going to take me months and months and months, if not years, to finish the book. But if you need a break, or if you're like, I'm getting really frustrated, maybe you should try something different in a short story form and just have fun. Have fun again.
Yeah.
And see what you like. And, there's different exercises you can try as well, just to kind of isolate the thing that really makes you happy when you're working on it. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not finding the stuff that makes you happy, the way you talk about things and all of this different stuff that makes a voice, you're going to find having that consistent tone throughout all of your works that much harder to find. And this just comes with writing a lot and getting a lot of stuff out there and starting to pinpoint the stuff that you always end up gravitating to anyway. Because that's going to be what people go to you to read, is the stuff that you end up writing a lot about. Mm-hmm. And so keep track.
Yeah. On this, in creating your own distinctive style, coming from Vogue on Poetry, I think you should write poetry. How about that?
And make really bad poetry.
Go ahead. It doesn't matter. Every poet was bad once. Yeah, experimenting with poetry is a great way to discover your voice. Because there's just different ways to express an emotion through poetry. And if you wanted to capture, things specifically in tight consistent like phrases, that's the best way I can think of doing it. Yep. So go ahead, write your Vogon poetry. Do it.
Absolutely. We encourage you.
Oh, gurgle crunching. Oh, I used to know it.
I believe you.
Flibble D. Oh, darn it. I don't have it written down. It's not one of my my written stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Because we are celebrating Hitchhiker's Guide, we couldn't go through this episode without sharing our favorite Hitchhiker's Guide metaphors. And so we each have chosen a few of the ones that really just make us giggle, and we're going to share those with you. And so my first one is, I think, right at the very beginning of the book. It might be the first line, but it's, "In the beginning, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move."
Yeah, it is the first line.
I love it. Love it.
It's a great way to start off a book. I picked, "He felt that his whole life was some kind of dream, and he sometimes wondered whose it was and whether they were enjoying it."
It's brilliant.
I just like that because I don't know. It's not what I expect.
All right, here's my second pick. It's, "Nothing travels faster than the speed of light, with the possible exception of bad news, which obeys its own special laws."
Right. The thing I'm just going to point out, one of the things that's the best about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like what observation of humanity that is coded by these outside views, of the characters who don't know anything about humans, and think that but it's also constantly pointing out what we do as humans. It's like, I couldn't find enough. Like, there were so many metaphors. I couldn't find what I could it was hard to decide 3. Isn't it enough to see that a garden is beautiful without having to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it too? That's me. That is a metaphor of me. So that you know, I'll love the gardens, but I'm always thinking that there's another layer to it.
Clearly, there must be fairies. Clearly.
Yep. Anyway.
All right, my last one, which delights me. "There is an art," it says, "or rather a knack to flying. The knack lies in learning how to throw yourself at the ground and miss." Clearly, it is the second part, the missing, which presents the difficulties.
Is that when the whale is falling down?
It might be
Magnathea. I think it is, because in the plant says something like he's thinking. I don't.
I mean, the plant wasn't thinking much. It was a plant.
Yeah, but no,
But the whale was having an entire conversation with itself.
Hey, look at this!
It's round. I shall call it ground. I wonder if it'll like me.
Okay, my very favorite, and this is a mantra that I say all the time. I could never get the hang of Thursdays.
T-shirt material.
T-shirt material. No joke. Okay, here's my metaphor for Thursday. Okay, so Monday, we all know what Mondays are like. So we're all prepared for Monday. Tuesday, you're running off some kind of momentum. Wednesday, you've hit hump day. That's great. Thursday is not Friday. Friday is Friday, and everyone's excited about Friday. Thursday is not Friday. It's the slog of the week. It's the worst day. So, dread Thursdays. There you go.
Excellent. All right, our finishing thoughts. Okay, first, thanks for hanging on with us today as we took a nosedive through Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So the biggest advice I can give you is, and we've said this one multiple times, and we'll continue to say this forever, this is our Miss Frizzle.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be messy and try new things.
My finishing thoughts is, this book is such a reflection of life and how we treat it. It's almost like a philosophy book. and it takes this outside perspective to capture all that it means to be human. And sometimes that's a good idea. So if you haven't read it, please do.
And there are really good audiobooks of it, if that is your thing.
I think Stephen Fry reads it.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, he is amazing. He narrates the movie as well. He's the narrator of the book in the movie. Because it's Stephen Fry.
Clearly.
You know? You can't go wrong, everyone. You can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong.
Use your Audible credit.
All right. A huge thank you for listening today. Next week, Candy, do you want to tell us what we're diving into?
Oh my gosh, no. We are talking about atmospheric phenomenon. Because we all just experienced an eclipse, and there was like huge things about that. And I want to talk about some of the myths and legends that go with it, and what's mystifying about these types of things. I'm excited. I like this. I like this topic a lot.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Because you saw the eclipse.
I did.
I want to hear all about it. So this is going to be fun.
I would love to share it.
Okay.
All right. Remember, if you've heard anything today that you thought was entertaining, amusing, or insightful, try saying that 3 times fast. I dare you. We have a Patreon. We have a Buy Us a Coffee.
I can do this.
Please do.
Please share with your friends this awesome podcast, because we really enjoy hearing from listeners and the people that have commented or liked our blogs. So just share us and like us and support us. Our Patreon and Buy Us a Coffee are always available. So there you go. How's that?
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to the Squirrel Podcast for the Distracted Writer with Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner. Please like and subscribe to our podcast for updates and new episodes, and find more information at our website, squirrelpodcast.com. Stay distracted, everyone.
It's recording, technically.
I really like
any of these outtakes will be used as outtakes.